Hello, everyone. I am joined today by my cousin Logan Chupp. He is since we don't have a Ohio State fan, we don't really like to talk to him a whole lot. We have brought one in for this very like exclusive special episode today. So, hello, Logan.
How you going?
Logan, this is the Natty. This is
It is.
we are
It's the
here.
big one.
It's the first time a 12 team playoff has happened, and this is the most success Notre Dame has had for my lifetime. And I'm wondering, does it have anything to do with there being more chances in the 12 team playoff? I mean, you start off with a easier team like IU. Not in your case, Tennessee, but what is this? What's the most successful like you have? What do you think about the 12 team playoff right now?
What do I think about the 12-team playoff? I think that um it just gives more team chances, which is a very obvious statement, but
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State Notre Dame, you are what, the 7 seed? Is that
That's
correct?
seven seed,
The
and
7 seed versus the 8 seed are the two teams in the championship. And if it would
that's
have been a
their
14,
that's their rating. I don't know. It's not their ranking. So
yes,
yeah.
understood. But I think in a 14 playoff, neither of these two teams would have made the playoffs. So I think ultimately it just gives a second or a third life to teams like Ohio State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois.
Yeah.
Ohio State, two losses on the season. So ultimately, even though teams could have been good in the past, one or two stumbles throughout the season could make so that they don't even have a chance. But now the teams that we know are still good and will have a chance in this format have the actual opportunity to make a run at it. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Do
it's
you do
very
you believe it is
it's a
good?
lot of change.
Do you believe that it's
What
a
was
good
that?
thing? Sorry. Do you believe that
Is it
it's
a good thing?
now if you putting your Ohio State, I know you're in it, it's a good thing because Ohio State's in it right now. But
Yes.
putting that aside, what is your honest opinion on is it a good thing, the 12 team playoff?
I have mixed opinions about it. Overall, I do think it's a good thing. Um, People have said that adding more teams is going to make the regular season matter less. I think it's kind of the opposite because um, in years past, if a team gets one or two losses in the first 9 weeks of the season, they
Mm-hmm.
know they probably aren't going to make it.
Right.
Now, even if you have two losses and there's 2 weeks left in the season, you know that if you win out, you still have a chance at making the playoffs. In years past, that just wasn't the case. So I think it does make the regular season more interesting for more teams, and I think that is definitely a good thing.
I agree with that. Looking at on this year, I was like, yes, there have been a lot more games that we feel like from week to week and the at the end, it's like, man, if this happens, it's like this could happen. You don't get that from years past. It usually narrows down. So yeah, I agree with that. There's more actual meaningful games. Never thought about it that way. I wanted to ask you, what is the vibe around Ohio State fans right now? Like, what's the culture like? Coming from, the last month and a half. You know what I'm talking about, the Michigan game to now. What is the vibe like?
The vibe is very different this past week than it was 5 weeks ago. The vibe right after that game was pretty much there were, I think the majority of Ohio State fans were either in two camps. It was one, fire Day immediately. He is not the man for this job. Get
Mhm.
him out. And the other camp was he has one more year to beat Michigan, regardless of how this year ends. And now I think with how we've rolled through the playoffs, people have cooled off on Ryan Day not being able to win big games. It's more Ryan Day not being able to beat Michigan specifically.
Hmm.
Because I think in the past, the vibe around Day was that he couldn't win the most important games, and
Hmm.
he's done that three
Right.
games in a row
Right.
outside of Michigan. So me personally, I still he has to beat Michigan next year. He has to. End of story. And regardless of how this year ends, and regardless of what happens in the postseason next year, if he doesn't beat Michigan, my personal feeling is that he has to be gone. And that's very difficult for a lot of non-Ohio State fans to wrap their minds around just because people do not understand how much it means.
I'll get
And
to
it
that.
does sound ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
I understand it sounds ridiculous, but there is no, in my opinion, it's the best rivalry in all sports, but I think it's hands down the best rivalry in college football.
Hmm.
And it means so much to Ohio State fans that other people just can't wrap their minds around. But
Yeah.
going back to the vibe around Ohio State football right now, the past week it has been finish the job. The Texas win was amazing. The strip sack fumble return for a touchdown is going to go down as one of the all-time best moments in Ohio
Mm.
State history. But as soon as that game ended, we didn't care. It was all about finishing the job with all the players that decided to come back and put their NFL careers aside for one more year. We came back for three reasons. It was beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, and win the Natty.
Ooh.
We haven't done two of those things, and so there's only one thing left to do, and that's all we care about.
Wow. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to mention there. Back to what you were saying about Ryan Day not being able to win the big game. Yes, that has been proved. Like in 2022, when y'all lost to Michigan, and then you had to play an absolute A game against Georgia. It was a very tough battle, but that was kind of an example of beating Michigan, like losing to Michigan. How is he going to respond to this? And so going to the Tennessee game, I didn't think I was like Ohio State's going to come out firing. I don't think they're. I don't. I think they just got woken up. I honestly believe that, and I didn't think they were going to play that good, but I did think that they were going to beat Tennessee. Um, oh, did I? No, no, no. I don't know. I don't know. Back to then the Michigan rivalry. Can you explain to the fans, try to make them understand because they're hearing that okay, if we don't win the Natty either this year or next year, or if we don't beat Michigan, he's gone, regardless of what he does in the postseason. If he doesn't beat Michigan, one game next year, he's gone. Because to 99% of college football, it's wow, this coach has taken us to two national championship games. This coach has won multiple playoff games, multiple 10, 11, 12 win season. Oh, wait, not 12 win seasons. My bad. Sorry. Sorry. In the regular season. But try to make us understand why this Michigan game is so important to Ohio State fans. Because to the rest of the college football, it doesn't make sense to us.
I think the thing is that I can't because I've grown up and every single year, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, you get together with family and you watch a game that means so much and it has so many memories and you grow up being taught that you hate this team and you never under any circumstances want them to win ever pretty much.
Hmm.
Some Ohio State fans are like, "Oh, if Michigan's good, it's good for the rivalry." Every single time I see Michigan take the field, I hope that they lose by 72 points exactly. Um, and for so long, Ohio State completely dominated that rivalry. And the past 5 years, we didn't play in 2020 because
Oh,
because of COVID, didn't let that game happen. And so we haven't beat them in since 2019, and that's half a decade.
hmm.
So just to think we haven't beaten them for half a decade. They've beaten us 4 times in a row. 4 times in a row, they've run their mouth, and they deserve to because they beat us on the field fair and square. And it goes both ways because I know there's Ohio State fans that um, were very much douches about it while we dominated the rivalry. But every single year, every single offseason, all the Michigan fans talk about is how we haven't beaten them. And
Hmm.
it doesn't matter that Michigan hasn't, they have made the playoffs, they have won the Natty. But I haven't heard any Michigan fans in the past year say, oh, we won the Natty and you didn't. All I've heard them say is, we've beaten you.
Hmm.
So from the Michigan side, too, they care more about beating us than they do about the Natty for the most part. So just not being able to have the bragging right and the thing that matters most to us in the sport is, unless you're in it, you just can't really understand it.
I will say, as a Notre Dame fan that has kind of grown up just kind of like in between Ohio and Michigan and just watched it go by, I will say, like growing up, it just was a thing. I don't even know. It just was a thing. Ohio State, Michigan. I don't know where it came from. It just like, but everyone's gonna watch the game, no matter who's playing. Everyone's gonna watch Ohio State, Michigan. That's just what it was growing up. Like I didn't watch every Alabama Auburn game. I'm just gonna say that
Yeah,
like right now. I saw a video that is like, oh, what's better rivalry, this or that? And it surprised me how much of down south that they don't believe that Ohio State Michigan is the best rivalry because they are
yeah,
crazy. Both I can honestly say, living right next to both fan bases, they are crazy. Both of them are they're crazy. And you know what? I think Ohio State and Michigan, I think they both love being called crazy for some reason. So it
yeah. I think that's also like largely a geographic thing because I didn't really realize how much Alabama and Auburn hated each other till recently. And it's just so far away that I don't think all the fan bases really understand how intense the rivalries are on both sides.
That's why no, growing up, Notre Dame's biggest rivalry is USC. But geographically, just because of the way they are, it's in California and Indiana. You just didn't really feel it growing up. It's more of a, how do you say, a show again, like USC, Notre Dame. They're 1 and 2 in NFL draft picks. They're 1 and 2 in Heisman winners. They're top four in pretty much every like long uh how do you I don't know how to explain, but very decorated fan bases.
They're both very historic
Yes, very
places.
historic programs, and so it felt like kind of more of a show. Like I never really had like a strong hatred for USC. I just never felt it. But then Caleb Williams beat us 2 years ago, and it was just kind of like yeah, that was the first time I was like, man, I do not like these guys at all. And so then we went back the next year and we destroyed Caleb Williams, made him throw 3 interceptions, and I had a little wallpaper on my phone of Caleb Williams doing this while being sacked, and it was just
I
really good.
watched that game with you.
I did. That was great. I was on board with that. Anyway, moving on to Notre Dame, Ohio State. Okay, first I want to talk about the Notre Dame and Ohio State. I've watched 3 times in my lifetime play. Ohio State has won every time. First one being in 2016 when we met in a bowl game, and my favorite Notre Dame player of all time broke his leg, and I don't know if he broke his leg. He very much injured his leg, and that was Jalen Smith. If you didn't know, it was my favorite Notre Dame player of all time. See him go down, he was just never the same person. That was a very sad moment in my life. Do you remember that game?
Vaguely, yeah.
Yeah,
I would never remembered the Jalen Smith thing, but I remember watching it.
and it was a thing like, is he gonna play? Is he gonna not? Because like he was an automatic like early draft pick, like no
Yeah, I
problem.
remember he was really good.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. Anyway, we don't have to talk about him. Uh, the last two previous matchups have been last year and the year before that. Now, the year before that, in 2022, the first game of the season, Notre Dame, Ohio State, didn't expect to win that game at all. It was just kind of like it was Marcus Freeman's first game for the first start. Besides, like we don't count the bowl game
Yeah.
previous year.
Yeah.
But we was like, all right, what's he gonna do? What's gonna happen? Let's not get blown out. That was that feel. Last year it was like, let's beat these, insert word. Anyway, it came down to the final play, and it was just one of the most. It was one of the worst nights of a Notre Dame fan, to be honest with you. It was the vibes were so high at Notre Dame during that week leading up to the Ohio State game because we 100% believed we can beat Ohio State, and we there was about 6 plays in that game that could have ended the game for us and didn't fall our way. So that's that's how I have been going up against Notre Dame. Never like, oh, sorry, against Ohio State. That's what I've witnessed. So trying to this win would obviously eliminate all of things. What have you been like? How have you viewed Notre Dame in your fandom of Ohio State?
Well, given the fact that Notre Dame hasn't won a natty in
Here we go.
38 years, something like that,
36, 30, 30, 29.
36,
Yeah.
I've pretty much always known them as a program that was good and could be good, but never got over the hump.
Hmm.
Um, I knew that they would usually have a solid season, but I never really was afraid of them in any way. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, they weren't really like, I guess in my, for most of my football watching lifetime was kind of like Nick Saban's Alabama teams and more recently the Georgia teams. Those were the guys you kind of had to look out for. And
Hmm.
Notre Dame was just always kind of a team in the background that could be good and had some good years. They made the playoffs, but I never really paid them any special attention until more recently when we played the home and away. So yeah, honestly, don't have strong feelings about them. To be honest, I never had any like hatred for Notre Dame or anything, and I still don't. Um, yeah, no strong opinions. They're just kind of a team in my area of the country that can be good, and I know they have a deep history, so I have
Yeah,
respect for them.
that's fair. I've always pictured Notre Dame as in the A tier, but can't make it to the S tier. It always just felt like, man, we're so good, but like we're really good. We're really sound. Like we've got some guys, but we play good, solid defense. And that's how Notre Dame has made it to 2012, they've made it to the championship game. 2018, they went to the playoffs. 2020, they went to the playoffs. And largely of that part was because of our defense. This year was probably a better defensive year than all three of those years. And we might have a better offense than all those as well. This might be the best Notre Dame team I've seen. It definitely is. As far as the amount of guys we've had, and I love Marcus Freeman. I loved Brian Kelly. I loved what he did for our program. He made us a solid team for how was it long? 10 years, 12 years.
Solid is a good word.
Solid. Thank you. Thank you. Uh, but he could never get over the hump, so he went to LSU where he can actually win a national title. And 2 years later, well, we haven't won, so. But I do not believe Brian Kelly would have taken us to this position where we are right now. I believe that's all of Marcus Freeman. Um, yeah. Let's go. Let's talk about the game. The game that's happening on Monday, Notre Dame Ohio State. What is this? This is Ohio State's game to win. It just feels like it. They've been on a roll. They like you said, finish the job. Finish the job. That's all Ohio State fans are looking at right now, just to finish the job because they have. I'm gonna be honest. I find it surprising how Ohio State hasn't won more natties in the last 10 years. 10 years ago, they won it, 2014, and it really feels like Ohio State has just been longing for it. They feel like they deserved it. They feel like this is finally the time that's happening. And yeah, I've always just been like thankful for another year of Ohio State not winning the national championship. That's how I have grown up. Very different viewpoints from Ohio State to Notre Dame, and from Notre Dame to Ohio State. So yeah, it feels like all the pieces are falling in place. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Yes. So for Notre Dame, it just kind of feels. It doesn't feel. I want to go over some just things Notre Dame has gone through this year. They have suffered a bunch of injuries. I know that. Um, Ohio State has. Do they have the best receiving room in the country?
Yes,
Yes.
hands down.
Notre Dame, they have seven corners in the NFL right now, and they're about to have eight next year in Benjamin Morrison. Benjamin Morrison, I think I've seen him play better than any other corner I've ever seen at Notre Dame. I think he's the best
Would
corner
have been a
we've had.
top 10 pick if he hadn't gotten injured.
Yeah. And so to see him gone for half the year has really been devastating. And we wouldn't need him in any more other game than this game right now. This is the game where we would just
Yep.
thrive with him. Now, it's not like an instant thing. It's not like this happened last week. So it has gotten the next guy up a lot of time to, get playing time. So that is a good thing. Even though it's a bad thing, at least it happened earlier in the year because of this matchup. I will say that. But yeah, I want to believe in Notre Dame really bad. We've you asked me at the beginning of the playoffs. I think I told you just because of the injuries Notre Dame has gone through this year, I don't think that they can do much in the playoffs. I think I told you that. And I haven't seen Notre Dame go through this much, like just willing to the will to win. Like it's been these last this last month has been the best time of my Notre Dame fandom, hands down. And just watching more Notre Dame players drop every week it's just been not fun to watch. Knowing that Ohio State is at the end of the tunnel, like just waiting for us, dropping three offensive linemen this year, questionably for four, Rocco Spindler because of last game, four starting offensive line. Pretty much our offensive line is out, basically, from the beginning of the year. Our best defensive lineman, Riley Mills, he's out. He was out in the end of the game. So our depth has it feels like I kind of felt this way for the Penn State game. It's like, man, our depth is has to catch up to us at some point, right? Well, we snuck out a win against Penn State, but it just kind of feels like that again. Like Notre Dame's depth can only go so far, and we have all our guys. I mean, this is it. Like, there's no other games to get more injured in besides this game. Uh, so what's your like? First of all, is there any Ohio State injury reports? I'm not even sure about them.
Um, no new ones, I would say. You were talking about your offensive line. We've had, I wish I should know this. I think we've had three starters go down over the course of the season, two or three. We have a very banged up offensive line, but nothing new. A starting tackle who was probably a top five in the country, Josh Simmons, he got hurt like halfway through the season, I think. So we've had injuries throughout the season, but I don't believe we have any recent ones.
Okay. So yeah, I'm saying all these injuries, trying to, make an excuse, trying to downplay it. But in reality, Notre Dame fans have hope. It's like that's the vibe around Notre Dame fans. We actually have hope. And I do believe Notre Dame can win this game. I do not predict it. But it just feels like we trust Marcus Freeman. I've never like I don't know how to explain it about trusting a coach before. Like none of us trusted Brian Kelly to, beat Alabama, to beat
Marcus Freeman has aura. I get it.
Marcus Smith, he has aura, man. Okay, but where did that come from? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Uh,
You know where it came from.
was he good at Ohio State?
Yeah, he was good. Through like the mid 2000s, our linebackers were just insane. They
Okay,
were so good.
all right. So yeah. So despite all these injuries, Notre Dame fans still have hope. Still believes that some of them still believe like we're gonna beat Ohio State. Like we're gonna
You
beat them.
have to.
Like you have to believe that. Now, as you know, a realist, as real as I can be, I believe we can do this. It just feels like the only thing I can compare it to is as far as my sports teams go. In 2016, the Cubs were down 3-1 in the World Series. It feels at that point right now. It's like we can do it, but I remember after that game 4 loss against the Indians, I'm like I was crying. I was like, why again? Not this year. This was the year. But then we went back and we won it. It feels like this can happen, but we're down 3-1 right now. That's how it feels. I don't know. What do you think? Like, what is your prediction for this game? I want to know it.
Like a score prediction or how the game
Okay,
goes.
how the game goes. I don't want score predictions. Score predictions are
How does the
we'll say
game
those at the
go?
end. How does the game go?
That's very difficult to just ask, how do I think the game's going to go?
I'll
Who
ask a
knows
better
how they're going
question.
to play?
I'll ask a better question. What are the keys? Okay, we know that Ohio State has control of their destiny right now. Ohio State, it feels like they have to beat themselves, kind of. A little bit. Like,
Yep.
Notre Dame can come full force, they can give them everything they want. It might not matter. What does Notre Dame have to do to beat Ohio State? Because I think I have some things.
Well, am I correct in saying, I believe I'm correct, that Notre Dame leads the country in defensive and special teams scoring?
Yes, that is
That
correct.
that is, I think, the key to the game.
Mhm,
If they can cause a turnover or two, um, they can get Howard to throw a pick.
mhm.
They can force a fumble. If they can get something on special teams, flip the field. That I think is um, that's the most important thing. If for Notre Dame to win, I think the second most important thing is obviously if Notre Dame can control the game. The fewer times that Ohio State has the ball, the fewer chances we
Hmm.
have to score. Notre Dame's path to winning is running the ball, picking up first downs, long drives that eat up a lot of clock. That's how Notre Dame's going to win.
That's exactly what I was thinking. So it's kind of it's a weird stat. Okay, we had the most turnovers in college football this year. Okay, now it's an unpredictable stat. You can't predict turnovers, but it also feels like we're actually pretty good at it. I don't.
Yeah, turnovers you can't predict, but there comes a point where if you lead the country and have as many as you do, there is there is somewhat of an art to it.
That's what it's kind of like that feeling. It's like I think Notre Dame fans know they can't beat Ohio State straight up, but we've seen these turnovers in this playoff. Like, sure, we out physicaled like Georgia, and but we got very important turnovers. You
Yeah.
know, oh, Penn State, we actually lost the turnover battle, but we had the most important turnover
Yep.
of
Yeah.
the playoffs. Or well, no, ah, hmm, no, it was the most important because
Yeah.
Texas could have tied. Ohio State still had time. This one was, hey, he gave us kind of the win.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we took it. We took it anyway. But yeah, it's not a great thing to like. That's your hope, but it's also like, it could happen. It could happen. I feel like Notre Dame might, could win off of like +1 in the turnover battle, They might need two. They might need two. One would be amazing. One would be great, but I don't think Notre Dame can lose the turnover battle. I think they have to have an important one at some point that can change the game. Anyway, lines 8.5. Over or under? What's your prediction? Ohio State 8.5, minus 8.5.
Here's the thing about lines that they scare me.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State beat Texas by 14. We by no means dominated that game. A
I won
14
50
point
bucks
win,
on that game, by the way. So
congrats.
Ohio
But
State has
if
won me
you,
money this year, so just gonna say
yeah,
that.
there you go. If you look at how that game went, it didn't feel like we dominated them at all, and we ended up easily covering the spread.
Hmm.
Um, just yes or no, if I would have to take the 8.5 or not, then I would say yeah, I would take Ohio State. And that's just if you think about it, it could be a very close game. Ohio State could have a 3 point lead in the fourth quarter, score a touchdown, and then stop Notre Dame. That's a
Hmm.
cover, even though it's a 3 point game going into the fourth quarter. So
Right.
I think that I would take Ohio State. I'm not putting money on it. I thought about it. I just don't want to be watching this game thinking about that in the back of my head in a national championship. But if I had to, I think I would take Ohio State to cover.
Here's what I was. I went to a place where I was like, you know what? I might put 50 bucks on Ohio State. But then I thought about it for more longer. I was like, because if Notre Dame covers, it's like I'd rather have Notre Dame covering than have, the 50 bucks. But then I realized, you know what? I can't bet against my team.
Yeah.
I just I can't
I
do
don't
it.
want to pay for wins. It just doesn't feel right.
Right. So that's why I backed myself out of it. Now it definitely was more of a, feel okay move if I would have, actually put 50 bucks on it. Like, all right, I lost the natty, but I got 50 bucks. Like
Yeah.
like that, meet me halfway. Um, that's not, oh, speaking of meeting halfway or meeting from the Michigan loss, if Ohio State wins this game, will that cover for the Michigan loss? Will it get you back to even? Will it just like it's the best thing ever? Or are you looking to next year already as like beat Michigan? We don't care about the natty.
I wish that this wasn't completely the case, but I know that whether we win or lose this game, going into next season, the thing that people are going to be talking about most is the Michigan game.
Hmm.
So when I if we win this game, I would say that it 90% makes up for that loss because I mean it sucks that we lost that, but we won the Natty. Like
Hmm.
that's
Right.
great, that's amazing. It I would say for like a month it makes up for it, but I would
Uh-huh.
say like going into next year, um that's gonna fade fairly quickly and it's quickly gonna become we absolutely need to win against Michigan next year under any circumstance.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. We only have a few minutes left. Real quick, we're gonna go over the actual score prediction. Okay. Because we have to make one. You have to make one.
Yep.
I'm gonna make two. You're gonna have to make two as well. What does an Ohio State victory look like, and what does a Notre Dame like points victory look like? Okay. So
Okay.
let's do Ohio State victory first. What does an Ohio State victory points look like? I got 13 to 24.
Is your kicker good?
Dude, he wasn't, and now he's lighting it up. I trust Mitch Jeter now. He was not a good kicker, and now he's just absolutely drilling them. He sent us to the Natty, so you can't really,
Um,
something Ohio State's kicker couldn't do, by the
this
way.
this feels kind of high, but um, if Notre Dame plays man like they said they will, then I'm gonna go 31-14
31-14. Okay.
or 13. 31-13.
Okay.
I trust our red zone defense to hold them to a field goal instead of a touchdown.
So we have a touchdown difference between us. You have Ohio State scoring one more touchdown. Okay.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame's victory. I'm thinking it looks 21-20, something like
Notre
that.
Dame's victory is 14-10.
14-10. Okay. I can see that. I was thinking, yeah, could Notre Dame hold Ohio State to 10 points though?
Here's my thing.
Is there more of a like a reason for okay, is it more likely that Notre Dame holds Ohio State to 10 or Ohio State lets Notre Dame score
It's
21
that
points?
Ohio State holds themselves to 10. We scored 10 against Michigan, and
That was then.
we have what?
That was then though. This is
No, hear me out.
okay.
We have such an explosive offense that not be a single team in the country that could hold us to 10 points. We only scored 10 because for the past 4 years, after Michigan has beaten us, they've said Ohio State is not tough. They cannot run against us. You are a soft program. And Ryan Day hears that and lets that go into his head. And
Mm,
he thinks, my main focus isn't to beat Michigan, it's to try to prove that we are tough. And during that game, the amount of times that we ran right into the middle of the defensive line, which is Michigan's arguably two best players, and got literally no gain time after time after time because Ryan Day wanted to prove that we were tough. And the times that we ran outside and got outside the numbers, we picked up yards. And that loss was entirely on Ryan Day letting Michigan get into his head. And after that loss, the entire state of Ohio was berating him. They were letting him know that he is absolutely garbage. So Ryan Day lost that game because he let it get in his head, and all of Ohio State Nation let him know between the Michigan game and the first playoff game, which was a couple weeks, it was a while, that that loss was completely on him. And in real life, I'm sure that there were plenty of people who went up to Ryan Day and let him know, whether that was other coaches or family member. I'm sure there were people who were like, you lost this because of your ego. We have Jeremiah Smith, who would be a top 3 pick in this year's draft if he was eligible. Emeka Egbuka will probably be a first round pick this year. We have those guys.
mhm.
And if we use them the way that we should, we can score enough to beat anyone in the country. And between the Michigan game and the Tennessee game, I truly think that Ryan Day heard that and it got through his head. And that's why we've seen what we have the past. Well, we didn't score a ton against Texas. They have a good defense, but at least in the Tennessee and Oregon games, we kind of went crazy. And so I think that's going to continue into this game. And people have let Day know we will lose this game if you get in your head.
Yeah, that's what Notre Dame needs. They need this game to be physical. They need this game to be. They want Ohio State to prove that they can be physical. Like, and they can be, but that's not how they're going to win this game. It's like this one guy, I forget who said it, but Ohio State, they're a Ferrari, not a dump truck. And so be a
Mm-hmm.
Ferrari. That's exactly, it
Exactly.
was a good. So, but I just don't think. yeah, I think he's past that. I think
Yeah.
that game is past. So I don't think Notre Dame's going to see that version of Ohio State. Speaking of, I want to go back to Jeremiah Smith. I've seen countless. Okay, you can probably count them, but it feels countless. The amount of talent Ohio State has had at wide receiver position in the last decade, or 15 years or whatever. Can you give me a top five list? Is that possible? Or is that
Of
just like,
their time at Ohio State
yes, their time at Ohio State,
of all time or in the past 15 years?
past 15 years.
Okay. That makes it easier. Of their time at Ohio State.
For reference, I'll give you my top five. Okay, so we have Michael Floyd, Golden Tate, Chase Claypool.
Golden Tate's number one. I don't care what anyone says.
Okay, well, I wasn't actually ranking them. I was just giving the
Yeah,
top
I
five.
know. I know.
And Will Fuller and ooh, Ben Skowronek maybe?
Hey, some of those guys had okay NFL careers.
Chase Claypool that one year.
That one year,
Golden Tate,
Golden Tate was solid.
Miles Boykin. We were,
Okay, we're getting a bit ridiculous.
hey, Miles Boykin had that one
Miles
insane
Boykin.
catch against LSU in 2017. Anyway,
Good for him, honestly.
Chris Spink, dude, that white little boy was fast. Anyway, oh, TJ
Okay,
Jones, that he was a fun dude. Anyway, Notre Dame's have always had solid receivers, not like ridiculous. Anyway, your turn.
my initial thought is Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, and Jack Smith and Jigba. And it's weird because they're all like back to back to back to back. Like we
Yeah.
had Olave, Wilson, and Jigba in the same exact receiver room. And
Mhm.
like it's crazy that those three dudes they're all number one. Well, in Jigba, maybe not yet, but they're all like pretty much number one NFL receivers, and we had them in the same room. But then like that's leaving McLaurin off the list, and he was so good.
Yeah.
And then Michael Thomas, we didn't use him as much in the Urban Meyer offense, but he was crazy good. Um,
This is just ridiculous. I mean, like,
of
how
the
lucky
of the
are you?
first
How like,
of the first five guys that I named, if I had to rank them, I don't even know if I could because you could rank them based off of NFL careers, you could
yeah.
base them off of strictly talent, or you could base them off of production. And I think like you would get different rankings on
Hmm.
either of those three. If I would go by talent, I would say I think Jeremiah Smith has to be number one. And that's not I'm not like educated enough. I'm not going back and watching all 22 of games. I'm not an NFL scout,
Hmm.
but I follow enough NFL scouting and I follow the draft pretty closely. And of guys who evaluate players full time as their job, I have heard them say that Jeremiah Smith is one of the best receiver prospects we've had in this century. And so I think he has to be number one just by that. And then
Hmm.
as a draft prospect, I think Marv would have to be two. I mean, he went four overall, and some of his highlights are just absolutely insane. And then between Njigba, Wilson, and Olave, I mean, you could make a case for any order of that. Just, I mean, Njigba had a
And
game where
Jigbo
he
was
had like
insane.
350 receiving yards. Wilson was dominant from the time he stepped on the field as a freshman. And Olave just is he still? I know he was. I think he was the all-time touchdown receiver at Ohio State, I think. So like we've been spoiled.
Yeah.
We've been very spoiled.
And then you had Justin Fields and CJ th Stroud to throw it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's that doesn't happen
Dwayne
to
Haskins, may
Ian
he
Book.
rest in peace. Justin Fields, Dwayne Haskins. Yeah.
You know, I have had Ian Book.
Yeah, you had that one lacrosse player as
Tyler
quarterback.
But hey, he's back. Did you not know? He's back.
Who
Tyler Buckner. He's back.
cares? No one.
No, no, hey, he's back. He threw that really cool play against on like a fake punt against USC. Yeah,
He
came
was
back.
on punt team.
Yeah.
That says all we need to know.
Hey, we have Jordan Faison, who's already a national champion this year, or actually last year, technically.
I mean,
But
you better hope that Carr pans out because my goodness, you guys have not had quarterback play.
dude, Notre Dame's quarterbacks. Here's how I grew up. They have all been able to run, besides like Jack Cohn, but they've
All
been,
of them?
who hasn't? Deshaun Kaiser,
Browns legend.
Brown's legend. Okay,
One of the 87 quarterbacks that started for him the past 3 years.
what? Here's the requirements to be a Notre Dame quarterback. You have to be able to run. You have to be able to throw it in the dirt on a 5 yard flat, or
Does it have to be a spiral?
no, it doesn't have to be a spiral. No, no, no. If you
Okay, good.
get the ball there, and you have to be able to, let's see, make a throw, a 15-yard throw, once every quarter.
So
That's the
what I'm hearing
requirements.
is I could be Notre Dame's starting quarterback.
You can't run though, so
I could break even. I could get back to the line of scrimmage.
yeah. So that's what my hey, Everett Golson could sling that thing.
Whatever makes you feel better.
Yeah, whatever makes me feel better. Nothing makes me feel better. Anyway, back to the Natty. But I want to talk about like just the where Notre Dame is at. Win or lose this game, this is the most successful season Notre Dame has been through in quite some time. And I feel this is a successful season. After we beat Georgia, that it was a successful season. It wasn't enough just to beat Indiana, but when we beat Georgia, I was like, that is has potential to be a program changing win right there. And then we beat Penn State, and that just added on to it. But we already knew that at that point. Like this is a changed program now. It feels like, and we are in back to the place. I would be very surprised if Notre Dame would not be competitive for the Natty in the next decade to come under Marcus Freeman. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know exactly how it is going to be in a decade, but in the next coming years, it feels like Notre Dame's going to be up there in the conversation every year. So that's as Notre fan going to the Natty. That's how I can feel. It's a successful season no matter what. Like this is not the be all end all. I feel good enough about the program where we will be back. That's how I feel. That's not like a TCU or a Washington situation where this is the be all end all. So that's how I feel for Notre Dame. I'm glad we're in this spot. It's the best spot I've ever been in as a Notre Dame fan. So I'm happy in the long run either way, but this would be beautiful. It's either going to be the greatest sports night of my life or it's just going to suck for a little bit. It's just gonna suck. But then
Yep.
then we're gonna get back to it next year. It's gonna be fine. But it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck, really. Yeah.
hmm
So where's it for you? Like, is this the be all end all for you, or what are you thinking?
Well,
Is Ryan Day coming back next season?
yes.
Okay.
Ryan Day will be the coach next season.
Okay.
100%. Well, I'll take it back to something I said earlier. This is something that Ryan Day and Ohio State players, and it's kind of the motto of the program that they have said going into every single year, we have three goals: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win the Natty.
Hmm.
If we don't win this game, we will have done exactly zero of those three things. And so if we don't win this season, not
Yeah.
really a success.
Despite
Um,
the biggest like buzzsaw like run of all time you've seen.
that's what's gonna make it so disappointing is
Yeah,
that like,
that's
yeah.
you've got to win this year.
So
Like
it's gonna be a sucky off season if we lose this one. Um, and then at the end of the day, clock's gonna keep ticking. Next season's gonna roll around, and we're gonna try to do it again next year with a lot of new players. But gotta have this one.
gotta
Gotta
have it.
have it.
Yeah. Any other thoughts that you want to get out before we wrap it up?
Any other thoughts? I hope they play a bunch of man.
I have no idea what I. It's like, yeah, we play man more than anyone else, but it's like, nah.
If if
Uh,
I had just like a random thing that doesn't really matter, if I was gonna put any money on this game, I would take a Emeka Egbuka anytime touchdown. I think that if we ever get in the red zone or
mm,
inside the 50, then Chip Kelly, amazing play caller, great at designing stuff. Um, we brought a bunch of players back to win the Natty, and one of those players was Egbuka. He's been around for a very long time. He's a senior. He decided to come back to win the Natty. I think that if we have a situation where we can draw up a scheme and we can kind of pick what player gets the ball, I think they're going to choose a Mecca. I would take a Mecca anytime touchdown.
actually, I like that uh pick. I would take that pick as well. I can see that happening. Scary thought, but yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for coming on and talking about this
Absolutely.
Ohio State. It was much fun. Go Irish for always. Screw Buckeyes. Screw those
Go
worthless nuts.
Bucks.
And
OH. OH.
we'll see you later.